Dr. Mason West.
To this episode of Bare Bones. As always, I am Mason West. Thanks for joining me, to you crazy people who are listening to this live on Thanksgiving Day. I wanted to make sure that I got something out for y'all with the Eagles game coming up tomorrow. It's been a while, right? This is 2018 since the Bears had this kind of a start 8-3 record, and I mean, who cares what everyone else is saying? The national pundits, those on Twitter, those on Facebook, all the crazy social media shenanigans that's going on, but who cares what they're saying? The Bears are 8-3. It's a good feeling as a Bears fan, no matter who they've played, who the quarterbacks have been, and now you have a team, right? Another 8-3 team, the Eagles, on the schedule that it should be fun. There we go. New England Bears fan. Appreciate you. Bare bones greater than Thanksgiving. Absolutely. Especially at 9 a.m. What are you doing? Right. Unless you're squeezing in a quick workout, turkey trot, maybe you're getting a turkey bowl in. But other than that, where else would you want to be besides listening to me talk about the Chicago Bears? So a couple things we want to go over here. First of all, in our chart review, Bears made some interesting practice squad adjustments. Just wanted to highlight these for those who might have missed it earlier in the week. They signed a couple players. One, Dominique Hampton, linebacker. He played college football as a safety for the Washington Huskies and was selected by the Washington Commanders in the 5th round in 2024. Played 6 snaps in one game of special team snaps for the Commanders. And then you have tight end Kadir Ismail, awesome tight end name, playing college football for the Samford Bulldogs and the Villanova Wildcats. He was an undrafted free agent in 2024, signed with the Baltimore Ravens. He's bounced around a bit, most recently with the Jaguars. And then lastly, defensive lineman Jeremiah Martin played college football for Texas A&M Aggies and the Washington Huskies. A lot of Washington Huskies. Signed with the Cleveland Browns as an undrafted free agent after the 2023 draft. Bounced around for Packers, Browns the second time, a couple other teams, and then Saints most recently. But that was in August of 14th, 2025. So not when Dennis Allen was there. I wanted to highlight that. Ended the roster kind of churning. There's a lot of injuries. For example, tight end Nikola Kalanick, he ended up leaving last game at a cast, is now on back to the practice squad / injured reserve. So you need some more of that depth. And he actually had a couple tackles in that game against the Steelers. So we'll get to this a little bit when we get to the injury report, but the Bears are still hurting. That's not a surprise to anybody. So, don't be surprised if you see more elevations, especially just for special teams reps. And that's the thing too. I mean, the special teams definitely better last Sunday against the Steelers, but still you need work on the special teams coverage unit. So getting some other legs out there, some different looks is definitely a good thing here. A couple of notes, quotes from the week. Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio was asked if Bears Caleb Williams is different than some of the other scrambling quarterbacks he's faced. Fangio said he just probably does it better than most. Him and the guy in New York are pretty elite at scrambling. I always love when coaches just either say numbers or the guy. Like, I think of the coaches who talk, Vic Fangio probably is the one I truly believe doesn't know the names of players. He just is like, I don't know, there's that one guy and insert team here. And, I looked at some tape and he's solid. But I just love that. But anyway, I wanted to highlight this one because Vic Fangio, to say that, a guy who doesn't speak much or say anything too inflammatory, but to say something of that nature of Caleb Williams, I think definitely highlights how good Caleb has been in that facet. Now, we haven't seen as much production out of the scrambling. He still, hasn't been able to hit as many receivers. We also know the scrambling drill has not been good from the receiver side. I think the best player who's at it right now is Colson Loveland. He actually runs the scrambling drill how he's supposed to. But overall, between Caleb's inaccuracies, between the lack of the drops on some of the receivers, tight ends, excuse me, and then also the poor no knowledge of space and where to go on the scrambling drill. The production hasn't been there, but Caleb's ability to avoid those negative plays and to at least give you a chance, whether it's with his legs, gaining yards or trying to make a throw, that's big. Also, by the way, I have a little weird sore throat, so if I'm constantly clearing my throat or drinking some tea, that is why. But flu game, fighting through this. Dennis Allen on a Sean Wright's playing time when Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon return. Everybody's going to have a role. I think this is important to highlight. One, because there's a good chance that both Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon play. We'll dive into that a little bit later, but not just that, but I mean, I've had my Nahshon Wright issues. I don't want to run from those takes. He gives up a lot of yards. He does. He gives up a lot of receptions. He's given up a lot of touchdowns. I think, part of that is, he was a Vikings practice squad guy and hasn't really ever been a true starter. So to thrust him into that role is tough. When your pass rush has not been as good as you'd like it to be, that is tough. But, he gives a lot of cushion. But what he's been great at is intercepting the ball. And I think that's important. You can't take that away from the guy. I think defense, especially corner, is a hard one to split time. It's different on offense. And this goes into the whole Travis Hunter conversation, but we're not going to dive into that. But getting, a package of 10 plays on offense is very different than getting a package of 10 plays on defense. So how do you balance that when all these defensive backs are back? Because obviously Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker, you want out there. Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon, you want out there. At this point, Nahshon Wright has a role of some kind, you'd think. Gardner Johnson absolutely needs to be out there in some capacity. And so how do you manage all that? But we'll see. This will be interesting tomorrow for sure. Another quote here. Dennis Allen on the Bears' plan to combat the Eagles' tush push. He said, "We do have a plan in place. We feel like it's a good, solid plan, not just that play, but stopping the plays that come off of it." Bears faced two tush pushes last week. One, they stopped. The Bears prevented tight end Connor Hayward from getting a yard on 4th and 1 on a direct snap. The second one, instead of trying to tush push, Hayward handed the ball off to running back Kenneth Gainwell, ran for 55 yards to the Bears' 1-yard line, and then Pittsburgh scored in the next play. You have to watch for this, right? The Eagles in particular have attempted 7 total under center runs with a yard or less to go on 4th down, and they've converted 6 of those for an 85.7% conversion rate. So on 4th and short, you have to be ready. Now, Bears players have talked about this. I think Nicholas Moreano did a fantastic job. He actually has an article up on the Marquette Network that I think you should go read if you want to see some of the direct quotes from some of these players. But, essentially with the two main things I feel that were highlighted, one was knowing the plays off of the play, right? So that exactly happened last week. And if anything, that might be a silver lining to that long run and ensuing touchdown is that happened to the Bears. They got to experience it themselves. And now even more red alert. Okay, hey, we have to be ready for the tush push, but we have to be ready for those plays off of it. The second thing being, I believe it was Greg Jarrett might have talked about the physicality. At the end of the day, the tush push is I'm going to beat you, you're going to beat me. Who's going to win that mentality? The Eagles don't have Kelsey anymore at center, who is a master at it, but Cam Jurgens can still hold his own on that play. And then Jalen Hurts is just a very strong, thick, and individual. Oh, look at that shout out. Notorious BG. Happy Thanksgiving, dude. Happy Thanksgiving back to you. Appreciate you being here. And so you have to be ready for that. You can't, if you force a 4th down against a team like this that is supposed to be a Super Bowl favorite, you cannot let them stay on the field. Whether that's for the fatigue of your defense, whether it's just for the idea of shortening possessions, you have to be able to get them off the field. 2 more quotes here. Baron Johnson on Theo Benedict, and if he will start if healthy. We will see. I have my own take on this. I think I'm going to dive a little bit more into it when we get to the training room. You know what? Let's talk about it now. Right now, Theo Benedict, right? He missed last week due to a quad injury, and he's been a full participant the last 2 days. I think there's a good chance that he got Wally pipped, right? Ozzie went out there. He had a great day against Nick Herbig, who is, if you go by PFF, I have my issues with PFF, but if you go by PFF, he's one of the highest scored edge rushers. Last week was one of the first weeks he really was more of the starting role, just due to the injuries that the Steelers had. But, he's a great speed rusher. And he's a guy that can rack up pressures. He's a guy that was able to get sacks. I believe he had 6.5 going into last week. And Ozzie held his own, and not just held his own. He did very well. Ozzie was not a problem on that offensive line, Ozzie Trapilla specifically. So, yes, this year matters. Obviously, you're 8-3, and you want to get as much as you can, but next year matters too, and going forward. And I think it's important to get a good look at Ozzy Trapilla. Now, some people are going to rage against. I mean, he had a bad preseason. He didn't look good. I mean, he's a rookie. How many guys? I mean, how long did it take Colson Loveland to get going? How long did it take Luther Burden to get going? We see this all the time across the league. Rookie, it's hard transition from college to the NFL, and not just that. Ozzy was trying to transfer from right tackle to left tackle. So you got to. I think you got to give him a look. I think an extended look at left tackle, because if Ozzy can be your tackle of the future, and I say this because Theo has been great in the run game, but he isn't. He's been a liability in the pass game. He's been taken advantage of. If there's been pressure, more often than not, it's come off that left edge. So if Ozzy can be your answer at left tackle, that changes your offseason dynamic substantially, because you're not having to scrounge and try to pay someone, right? Because Bears are not going to have a lot of money. They're going to have some hard decisions to make the upcoming offseason. Between you're already paying Kyler Gordon, you're paying Jalen Johnson, you're paying Montez Sweat, you signed Grady Jarrett. There's not an easy out in that contract. You signed Dio Dangbo. There's not an easy out in that contract. You have to decide: are you going to be extending Jaquan Brisker? Are you going to be bringing back a CJ Gardner Johnson? The list, and then DJ Moore. I mean, get to this: DJ Moore, Cole Kmet. Are there guys that you stick with? Are they guys that you have to move off of? Because they really don't have a lot of movable money going into next year. So between a free agency discussion and also draft, right? I know. Go back and listen. When I had Jacob Infante on here previewing the not Steelers game, but the one before that, the Vikings game, he dove into some of the tackles in this draft. It's a good listen. Plus, just go look at his stuff. He's got great stuff up there. He just published a new one for potential what the draft might look like for the Bears. He always has some new stuff, but it's not a left tackle heavy class. Some of the best ones early are right tackles, which actually might be good for the Bears. But at the same time, if there's not a lot of left tackles, there's a couple left tackle desperate teams drafts one or two early that should go later. And then all of a sudden, second round guys get pushed up to the first round. Now, are you reaching for a guy that you should have taken in the second or the third round? It's a head spinning conversation. So ultimately, having an answer with Ozzy, if that's the case, is fantastic. So in my opinion, and we'll see what happens tomorrow, Ozzy should be your starter until proven otherwise. Theo, fantastic swing tackle. Thank you. I salute you. Play the Canadian national anthem for the Canadian Eagle, excuse me. But at the end of the day, I think especially, that's what you, out of an undrafted free agent being a very reliable swing tackle, I think that's pretty good. So I'd be happy with that. All right. Last one here. Almost forgot it. Bears coach Ben Johnson on Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon. We've got a plan in place for them, and we're really right on track with what we're hoping to get done with them, so we'll know soon enough. I really thought Jalen Johnson was going to play last week. I did. Ultimately, from what I understand and from what makes sense, I think they looked at that as a true ramp up time. Go full. Like he was part to full and then full all the previous week. But it was a short turnaround, right? I mean, Sunday to Friday, it's even just losing 2 days is a big difference. So having that kind of a week and then knowing who was on the horizon, I think the Bears looked at it as we can get by without Jalen. And luckily they did. Let's give him one more week. Let's man, and that way we can unleash him potentially a little bit more. I still think he might be on a snap count. I think snap count, I already talked about this, hard as a corner, but based on what we're seeing, based on what Ben's saying, he's playing coy, but clearly the Bears have a plan. I think they learned a little bit, or Ben specifically did, from the previous attempts to get Kyler Gordon on the field, to get Jalen Johnson on the field after their early issues and how they had, either recurrence or a compensatory injury. They're trying not to rush this. So let's just shift right into that training room roundup, our conversation about what's going on both the Bears and Eagles side of the injuries. So did CJ Gardner, let's just do right back into our Jalen Johnson conversation. Did CJ Gardner Johnson hint at Jalen Johnson returning versus the Eagles? Here's his quote. He's one of the best corners in the league. I just feel like now he'll get a chance to actually show that with him being active this week against a great receiving core. I'm excited for him because everybody asks, what can you do against a great receiving core? And he has a chance to prove it. Shut everybody up and get back active. Now, there's a chance that, that's just pump up talk and everything. But at the same time, I think if you read between the lines a little bit, if you see how he worded some of those things, to me, that shows that Jalen Johnson should be back. And if you go back, I mean, this whole surgery, it's about a 10 to 12 week recovery, give or take. We are at that point. I think he could have played last week based on general recovery time. He might have been able to go the week before to an extent. I wasn't as confident on that one. So don't be surprised if Jalen Johnson is playing. Let's go through the unfortunate ones. So you're pretty much down four linebackers at this point. Obviously, Tremaine Edmonds is on IR. TJ Edwards has not participated the last 2 weeks, two practices, excuse me. Tuesday was a walkthrough, so it was estimated. Wednesday they did practice. We'll see what happens today when they get out the report. But the hand he had the surgery on the hand. That's not what's keeping him out. Is the hamstring. I say it over and over again. Soft tissue injuries suck, and hamstrings in particular are finicky. So the fact you cannot go from not participating for as many weeks as he's not participated for these 2 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, not participating in play. So TJ Edwards is out. I would be blown away if he plays. Ruben Hippolyte, unfortunately, he didn't get too many snaps last week. He got just absolutely demolished by Darnell Washington. Darnell Washington came around the right side, just Hippolyte never saw him, took it full force, and he got hit in the shoulder and has not participated. He's also going to be out. And then just rounding out the linebackers, Noah Sewell, elbow. The part that sucks, and I always talk about this position by position. If he was a running back, he might be able to play, right? You just aren't as worried about the elbow as much as with the linebacker. The main job is to go up and fill a hole, make a tackle, and wrap up a guy. So do you really want, and we'll talk about this, but I think Saquon's legs are kind of shot this year. Too many touches last year. It's like the rule of 350. If anyone's interested, you can go back and look at the rule of 350. It's kind of crazy how consistently running backs in particular just cannot handle that volume is the problem. But even so, do you want Saquon Barkley running through the busted elbow of Noah Sewell? No, you don't. So let's roll now. DeMarco Jackson probably gets the dot again, I would assume. Let's see it. You're going to go with probably Amin Agba-Banigba. I'm sorry that I always butcher his name. I'm not great at it, but he actually played really well against the Steelers. So I'm kind of excited to see what he looks like. You're still going to also probably have Carl Jones called up again as your other linebacker. And last week you saw Brisker playing a lot of like big safety, that like dime look. So I would expect him to playing in the box again. So you're down all those guys. Crooked Commish, happy Thanksgiving, guys. Bear down. Nice to see you in the chat. Appreciate you being here. Bummer, Luke Newman, who actually had to step in as that sixth interior lineman or the extra interior lineman because you ended up having, Ozzie playing your left tackle. You didn't have Theo, so you had Luke Newman fill in. And you also had him playing right guard for a play or two when your starter ended up having to go out there with DNP with the foot 2 times. That's a tough one. I think he's probably going to miss this one as well. Dominique Robinson out with a concussion the last 2. You're missing him for sure. The only one really that could, I think, play as a DNP might be Tyreek Stevenson. I'm not confident in it, but if you can get Jalen Johnson back and you can get Kyler Gordon back, now all of a sudden, I think you keep Nahshon Wright out there and you have Jalen Johnson and you spell him every once in a while with a little bit of a rotation. That's something you can handle. Javon Dexter, limited with a hand. We'll see. Limited. Anytime you see that limited pop up, like he wasn't on the injury report for Tuesday and you pop up on Wednesday, it's hard to know what went on because it's essentially if he missed any time, that means you put limited. He could have missed 1 snap. He could have missed 99% of the practice. It's hard to know, but depending on what it is, you think you might be able to wrap that hand in a club, right? And have him out there. It's entirely possible, especially, it's going to be a little unfortunate. Like shedding the blockers is tougher. Obviously with that club, it's a lot easier if you're just going to be punching on the inside, but as not maybe an offensive lineman for the defense to be able to, you got to get a hold and shed, but we'll see. Theo was full. Kyler Gordon Travis Homer, Jalen Johnson, Kamalan guy. So we already talked about Jalen. Kyler Gordon, I'm less confident he's playing in this game. It's possible he still goes with the, Jalen, almost what they did with Jalen, where yes, he's full, but we got to hold that. But especially if they do put Jalen in and he's going to be on a snap count, and if you're missing Tyreek Stevenson, I think there's a chance that you do get to see Kyler Gordon out there. I would put it the combined chances of seeing both Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon, I'll put at 70%. So I'm not like totally locked in that they're both out there, but I think that there's a good chance you see both out there. All right, moving on to the Eagles. Just a couple things to highlight before we get heavily into it. Lane Johnson is going to be out for the Eagles, so they've been using Fred Johnson, who's been like fine. A big shift for them is the fact that safety Makuba is on IR, so he's out with a broken foot, I believe it was. But people were circling Saquon potentially missing. He's going to play. I would be blown away if he misses with that groin injury. Reed Blankenship, he's been limited he's just playing through an injury. He's going to play, but he's definitely hampered. Leonard Dickerson, one of their guards, limited. He should be playing. In terms of other people that actively matter, Brandon Graham went from DNP to limited. He should be playing. I already talked about Lane Johnson. He's going to be out. The biggest. Oh, by the way, I know I talked about this. If anyone watched Bare Bones in the preseason and draft time, Willie Lampkin. I love Willie Lampkin. I know he's not going to be relevant to this team. But he's too small really to play your guard position. I dreamed of having him on the Bears as like a true seventh lineman fullback hybrid because I just think he moves well enough. But obviously that didn't happen. But that was just my weird Willie Lampkin sidebar. The biggest one to talk about that's as a question mark is Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith, he's dealing with a triplet of shoulder, chest, and illness. Didn't participate the last 2 weeks. That is a hard combo to try to overcome at this point. I would expect him to miss on the short week, especially with that illness. Are you able to get into the training room as much as you'd like to? I mean, your body, that's a lot of energy just recovering from a sickness and to injuries. Man, I would be surprised if he plays, which would be huge for the Bears if that's the case. So still keep an eye on it. All right, we have a break, and then we'll get into the next aspect of our show. Kombucha is a premium performance-focused kombucha crafted specifically for athletes and active individuals. The revitalizing beverage blends the traditional benefits of kombucha with nutritional enhancements to support energy, hydration, and recovery. Made from organic teas and infused with natural electrolytes, kombucha offers a delicious and effective solution to maintain peak performance. Maybe if I was having my kombucha more consistently, I would not be sick right now. But I got this little throat cold, like I said. Use code BEARGUTCHECK for 15% off your order. Ooh, I just noticed my background slipped. Well, we're not dealing with that. You guys know what it is. Knee-jerk reaction. My knee-jerk reaction. This Eagles team needs a Super Bowl or it's going to implode. Not just they need a Super Bowl. I think they need this win. And it's different, right? 8-3 Bears. Vibes are good. You understand who you've played. You understand what that looks like. I talked about at the top of the show. 8-3 for the Eagles. It's not great, right? The vibes are bad. They're actively bad right now. And if you lose that heartbreaker to the Cowboys where you were up 21-0 and allowed them to come back, and then lose to the Bears, who on paper have, let's be real, the Bears do not have a good defense on paper, and they're hurt. Yes, they turn the ball over, but if you follow this team, the defense is not very good. There's almost a thing too, like the Eagles offense has been struggling for sure, and I'll dive into some of the numbers later. But if you can't get right against this Bears defense, when are you going to get right? So I think it just means a lot more. Like I mentioned, the Eagles blew that 21-0 lead. Saquon Barkley never got going on the ground, and the vibes in Philly just looked miserable. When asked about play calling, and whenever you start to talk about play callers, I mean, Bears fans know this. I mean, think about the whole Matt Nagy play caller saga and what that looks like. Nick Sirianni said Monday he has not contemplated taking those duties away from offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo. Kevin Patullo right now is enemy number one in Eagles land. Eagles fans want to just send him to the sun. But Nick Sirianni said, "No, I haven't. Coaches, we're always looking for answers. We're never into assigning blame. It's just looking for answers. I think that what can happen it's just that. Well, it's not just that. It's every piece of the puzzle: coaching, playing, execution, scheme, everything. We've got to be better in all those aspects. A lot of coach speak for. I think if something bad happens one more week, because they said they're looking for answers. The answer might be we got to move on here, and that's the thing. Sirianni, I mean, he has his own problems. So that's a whole other conversation. But anyway, through 11 games, the Eagles' offense is the worst it's been in Sirianni's 5 years as head coach in yards per game, points per game, and EPA per drive. They've excelled in taking care of the ball and scoring in the red zone, but it's otherwise been an inefficient offense. They rank number 24 in the NFL in yards, number 17 in points, 21 in rushing, 23 in passing, number 27 in third downs, and number 1 in the red zone. The number 17 in EPA per drive, and number 32 in 3 and punt rate. So it's not the problem is too, this offense was so based around we can just run the ball whenever we want to. It doesn't matter what front you have. It doesn't matter, what players you have. It doesn't matter what the scheme is, the stunts, the blitzes, the this, the that. They could just run the ball at will. That's not the case this year. And part of that is, again, the lack of burst from Saquon. Part of it is the changes along the offensive line. To be perfectly honest, I love how guys on this team have stepped up when called upon. So we talked a little about Nahshon Wright already, but just in the last 3 weeks, he has a 76.8 coverage grade, which ranks 10th, 50% completion percentage allowed. He has 2 interceptions, 2 PBUs, and a 44.4 passer rating allowed when targeted. Before that, I mean, I don't have the exact number, but I remember it was like 130 something passer rating. Last week, no starting linebackers. I mean, DeMarco Jackson had 5 solo tackles and 15 combined in that game. Crooked Commish said Jackson had a bunch of tackles last game. That's exactly did. Good call out there. Ruben Hippolyte went down. Again, Amon came in, and he had 2 solo tackles, 14 combined of his own. Tyreek Stevenson missed a chunk of this game, yet guys like Nick McLeod, Elijah Hicks came in. Brisker, like I said, was playing more in the box, so Hicks kind of came in and got some snaps as well. Right now, the way this defense is working is like, yes, it's not a bunch of really good people out there right now, whether it's due to roster construction or the injuries. But it doesn't really matter because these guys are playing in a way that is just aggressive enough, cohesive enough that you're still getting stops. It's still not a great defense, not even maybe a good defense, but you're playing a little bit above your punch, your weight class a little because of the effort and what Dennis Allen is doing. A lot of people have wanted to kind of poop on Dennis Allen, especially early on, but I think you're seeing that, because don't be mad at the chef for giving you a 3-star meal when they're giving you 1-star ingredients. Like, you should celebrate that. Well, ain't this humorous? Something quirky or funny. In the last 5 games, Colson Loveland has 20 catches for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Tyler Warren, draft analysts and those who like to poop on the Bears' favorite tight ends, had 26 catches for 292 yards and 1 touchdown. So pretty similar. Colson obviously has a couple more touchdowns. So for those who freaked out early about the Loveland pick, I mean, Danny and I talked about this. I did a breakdown on Warren for one of my picks going into draft season, and Danny did Loveland. Warren was going to be the more NFL ready guy. He was going to be in versus Loveland would be the project. Higher ceiling for Loveland. He's got just the body type, massive human being, long arms, but he was a football infant. And he was also coming off a shoulder injury and the mouths to feed, right? Rome Odunze, DJ Moore. You look at even Cole Kmet, you could throw his name in there. Luther Burden. Obviously, they wanted Olamide Zaccheaus to be heavily involved in this offense, which he's been pulled back a bit, which is for the best. That's a lot, right? Versus look at Tyler Warren. I mean, I like pieces on the Colts, don't get me wrong. I like Josh Downs. I semi enjoy. I'm even blanking on his name. Their main receiver, he's fine. He's fine. And then they traded Adonai Mitchell away because they just didn't want to deal with him anymore as a part of that deal for them to get Sauce Gardner. It's not the same. And also too at the time, and I think I've talked about this with Ben a little bit. the Colts specifically schemed up a lot of stuff for Warren. I mean, it was like, literally some direct snaps and, first read stuff. Loveland had to get there. Ben just didn't hand it to him. So I just find it funny, all the hand wringing over the Loveland pick. And it honestly, he just looks like he's going to take over this league, just given a little bit more time. All right, another break here. We have merch. This isn't anything new. We've been talking about this for a couple of weeks. What is new is the fact that we are doing a holiday promo. This is where you play like some fun sound effects or something if I had them available. Do I have one? Oh, here we go. Great, and applause. Like I said, holiday promo. I'm throwing the QR code up on the screen around the 31:45 minute mark here if you're listening to the podcast. But if you use code HOLIDAY18, you get 18% off everything starting on Black Friday all the way through Cyber Monday. So you can go ahead and get merch from your favorite podcasts, right? Everyone from Bears Over Beer. I'm just going to pull this. You got Making Monsters, Bear and Balance. You got Bears Over Beers, Bears Banter, Reed and Max Show. All of, and of course your bare bones. So go ahead, get that merch for yourself, 18% off with code HOLIDAY18. Get it for a loved one. Get it for a coworker that is a Vikings fan that you want to taunt, and just throw them a mug that they can chuck against the wall. Go ahead, get that merch now, not just for you, but also for us. Just pull the curtain back. The more merch you buy, I want to do cool stuff. We want to do cool stuff, but we do need some of that funding to do meet and greets, right? To do a live draft show, things of that nature. So support us, but also get yourself some cool swag. All right. We're going to go right into Love It, Hate It, Rehabilitate It today. A little bit of a more condensed show with the holiday. I got to get on my turkey soon. Actually, so I did 2 brines. I did a wet brine 2 days ago. I did a dry brine yesterday. And then today I'm going to get it in the oven, obviously. So, I'm very excited for how this is going to turn out. But anyway, a matchup or a dynamic that I love for the Bears, one that I hate for the Bears, and one that if I was the coach, I'd focus on fixing this week. Love the head coach, Ben Johnson, versus the head coach, Nick Sirianni. So part of that is just straight up who they are as people. I think Ben Johnson is, and I say this in the best way possible, a psychopath, right? I mean, he's obsessed with winning, obsessed with football, but he's obsessed with doing it the right way. You look at Nick Sirianni, I think he's a tool. He's an unenjoyable human being. He's been in the news, last year and even a little bit this year about his chirping with opposing fans and just kind of how he carries himself. I think that he was handed a Cadillac, a Mustang, a Porsche, whatever like high-end car you want to talk about by Howie Roseman, and he's done okay with it. I mean, you want a Super Bowl. Don't get me wrong. You're a Super Bowl winning coach. I'd kill for a Super Bowl. But at the same time, I mean, yes, you won a Super Bowl with the Monstars. And it hasn't even been consistent. I mean, go back to 2 years ago, actually kind of similar to this year, where Brian Johnson was the offensive play caller. So Sirianni wasn't even the play caller. So what do you do here? And the Eagles still made the playoffs, but they got bounced. And then everyone was freaking out. And then you go out and you hire Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator. You go and you hire Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator, and then they win the Super Bowl. But how much of that's really Nick Sirianni? Some specifics on offense for the Bears. Matt Harmon at Matt Harmon _BYB tweeted out a chart showing wide receivers being targeted on more than 25% of their routes on play action this season. 2 Bears on that list. So for context, Jackson-Jigba is at number 1, Emeka Egbuka at number 2. Egbuka's fallen off a little bit, but that's more about injuries along the offensive line. Mike Evans isn't in, Chris Godwin. You haven't had Bucky Irving. I think Baker's had a low-key injury that hasn't been discussed. And then obviously he had the one he got ruled out for last week, but that's just my theory. Anyway, so two players do you want to be, in conversations with? Who's at number 3? Luther Burden, 35.9%. So 36, let's just say, percent of the time, he's being targeted on more than 25% of his routes when there's play action involved. The other Bear that's on this list in the top 20 is Rome Odunze at number 16 at 25.9%. So some people are worried about Rome falling off a little bit in recent weeks, but I'm not too worried about that. We already talked about the mouths to feed thing, but he needs to clean some mistakes up. But generally, not too concerned about it. Sometimes it happens where there's a guy that gets hot, he goes cold, then he heats up again. I mean, just how the position works for those like kind of boom bust wide receiver 2 types. You're hoping he can become a true wide receiver 1, but it's definitely. But as of right now, he is a little bit more in that wide receiver 1B 2A mold. And like I said, just some stuff to clean up. The drops are most obvious. Some of his routes need a little bit of tidying up. And I think, then there's also, Caleb has to have a part of that conversation. There's a couple of plays where the inaccuracy is a problem. Maybe getting out of the pocket a little too soon and scrambling. So all that's part of it. But as a part of that, the Eagles allow an NFL high 614 yards on play action passes to receivers lined up out wide this season. So the Bears have 2 receivers in the top 20 in terms of that play action receptions, and the Eagles just allow a heck of a lot of that play action. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later too. By the way, there isn't an Eagle on the top 20 of this list. Whether that's because the Eagles don't run a lot of play action, whether it's because of the woes of the passing game, it's not a part of it. On the Eagle side, if you look at the route frequency of crossers versus hitches in week 12, Eagles ran around 30-ish% hitches and only 7% crossers. I hate stagnant routes. They suck. I hate when you see it on the Bears tape. It does pop up. But running hitches, running comebacks, those routes that DBs can just sit on, I don't like it. I mean, all Bears are going to need to do is sit on those hitches for PBUs or INTs. If Jalen and Kyler are back, that's big. I'd much prefer those runaway routes, right? Use your speed, use your athleticism, allow the quarterback to lead the pass instead of having to put it just on a dot. So I think that's something that another reason I like the difference between, because at the end of the day, Nick Sirianni is an offensive guy. I know he's not calling the plays right now, but this should be his offense. Hate it. To keep it simple, it's the injuries. I mean, with what the Eagles are at right now, if the Bears were full strength, I think it'd be even more of a chance of winning this game. I mean, that's not saying much, but I think just right now with how the Eagles are kind of falling down and the Bears are going up, if you could have had 2 of your linebackers back, if TJ could have played, and if you got Noah Sewell back, and you got Kyler, and you get Jalen, if Tyreek could have played, I mean, now all of a sudden you're kicking with gas. But now it's more of a question mark because of those injuries, and it sucks. But and I picked that honestly, again, low hanging fruit, because there's not a lot of hate about this matchup. It's weird to say. I mean, you could probably point to maybe the Eagles pass rush and the Bears offensive line, but I'm more confident with the offensive line now than I've been in years. And so I'm not like, I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. Same thing with, the Eagles secondary. I mean, they have some names in there, but because of their injuries that they've had to move some guys around in a way that hasn't great. I mean, Cooper DeJean's a fantastic slot, but when he had to play outside, he was not playing as well in that last game against the Cowboys. So, there's the things you might normally hate, not here. All right, lastly, rehabilitate. The Bears' rushing defense is not good. It hasn't been all year. The Chicago Bears, I guess you could have put this at hate, but at the same time, I think this is a chance that you can get a little bit better. The Chicago Bears rushing defense ranks 22nd in the NFL in terms of EPA allowed at 0. So it is 22nd, but it's kind of a push. You're not giving up any extra points or anything of that nature. Chicago Bears have allowed 45.73% rushing success rate in the NFL this year. That ranks 28th out of 32 NFL teams. That's not good. But when you look at the other side of the ball, I mean, Barkley only rushed for 22 yards on 10 carries last week. Obviously, the Cowboys defense has gotten better. When you trade for an all-pro-esque player in Quinnen Williams, that'll do that. And that was actually Barkley's fewest yards and yards per carry in a game since December 2023. If you look at his year as a whole, he ranks 12th in the league in total yards and 43rd in success rate. So I think you're just catching the Eagles at a good time with their identity just not being the exact same, which is good for us. All right. Oh, there we go. At TJ Huwitz. Happy Thanksgiving, Bear fam. Happy Thanksgiving. X Factor for the Eagles. It's Vic Fangio. I mean, this guy, he's a mastermind back there, but specifically it's Fangio in that passing defense. So I talked about the play action, which we'll talk about a little bit again, but as a whole, their passing defense as a whole, it's good. The Eagles lead the league in lowest completion percent allowed. They lead the league in least passing touchdowns allowed. They're 6th in passes defended, 3rd lowest passer rating allowed, 8th in QB hits, and 6th in expected points added by their passing defense. So if you're just going to line up and run and throw at them, you're going to have a bad time. And for an Eagles defense with the fronts that it has, because that's a part of it, the pressures they're able to put on, your Jalen Carters of the world and your Brandon Grahams of the world, things, Jalex Hunt, man, I love Jalex Hunt. I wish the Bears had taken him. I was upset about that. But anyway, they're going to create pressure. It's going to force you to get the ball out sooner. And they have DBs that are good, right? I already mentioned a couple of them, but at the same time this week, they're a little more banged up. So we'll see how that goes. And the X factor for the Bears, force the Eagles into passing situations. Now, the Bears defensive backs are supposed to be a strength. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. If you get the corners back that you're hoping that you get back, you get closer to that strength. We also know the Eagles offense has struggled. I talked about how the running game is a prerequisite. But also, you have A.J. Brown just having hissy fits the entire time. That Eagles locker room is not good. I think a lot of the locker room just does not like Jalen Hurts from reports that you're hearing and seeing. So if you can force the Eagles to pass, right, and you can get them into 3rd and 8s instead of being in 3rd and 2. This isn't saying much, but at this point, I'm more confident the Bears converting a 3rd and 8 than I am the Eagles converting a 3rd and 8, and that's a wild world to live in. A little extra X factor for the Bears, just playing off of that play action one. This is from Robert Mays of the Athletic Football Show on The Athletic. The Eagles are dead last in defensive EPA per dropback on play action. So they play a lot of cover 2, and their safeties are really important in that run fit. That's one of the reasons they are so good at stopping the run. And so you have to fly up, fill those gaps. And and the league has reduced overall the effectiveness of play action. Part of it is because you have this cover 2 shell and you're just dropping back and the routes that are underneath it aren't open. But because the Eagles have their safeties fly up like they do, you can take advantage of that. You don't have players to drop under those crossers. You also, like I mentioned earlier, Makuba's out. So you have Sidney Brown taking his place. Reed Blankenship is banged up. Another stat that Robert Mays threw out there, only Jared Goff has more play action throws to the middle of the field. This is like a strength and a weakness, right? The Bears love running play action, especially, and Caleb is willing to throw over the field. Now, the accuracy we can have a conversation about, but, and the Eagles are having a hard time stopping it. So if there's someone that's going to figure it out, it's Vic Fangio. So if all of a sudden on play action it's not successful this game, it's just because Vic said, hold my beer. I'm going to make sure that you don't get your bread and butter. So, but I do think that could be an X factor if the Bears going to hit that. All right. And now we get to our Bear gut check. We use our I use my gut feelings revitalized by Kombucha to give our game predictions against the line. So Bears at Eagles. When I looked yesterday, the line had dropped. It was at 7. Now it was at 6.5 yesterday. I think this line is really high, to be honest. This just seems a little disrespectful to me. I understand how the Bears got their 8-3 record, but one, Friday games are weird. Thursday, Friday, any of those games are weird. Second of all, the vibes. I hate to. That's not a concrete objective thing, but at the same time, a team that's feeling good coming off of multiple wins versus a team that's coming off of a gut-wrenching loss and oh my God, we have to have this. And we're talking about the A.J. Brown issues in the locker. He's going on, Twitch talking about don't play me this week a couple weeks ago, and we're not seeing that improve. Again, Nick Sirianni is talking about having to answer questions about changing the play caller, this, that, and the other. That seems like a crazy line. I'm going to fully drink the Bears Kool-Aid. I'm going to say the Bears cover. At a minimum, they cover. And they win. You know what? Screw it. They win. The Bears go into Philly and pull off a victory. A close one. It's not going to be a blowout, but pull out a close win. Wait.
The gas pedal.
No, I'm saying, no, the brakes. Guys, why aren't the brakes working?
Because I cut the brakes! Wild card, bitches! Yeah!
And with a win there, the Bears don't have to worry as much about a wild card. Now you're having conversations about, leading the NFC. All right, we're gonna go through all the Thanksgiving games because why not? Early game: Packers at Lions. Lions favored by 2.5. This is an interesting one. You can go through a lot of math and say like, all right, well, who do you want to win as a Bears fan? If the Packers win this, the Lions win that. I mean, preference-wise, maybe you want the Packers to win this because they have that tie on their record, so that can hurt them. You could also talk about if you have the Lions win this and then the Bears, like just if they won not just 1, if not 2 against the Packers, which I think is entirely possible considering how the Packers are playing this year too. Now, you could just knock the Packers out of the playoffs pretty easily, more easily, I should say. And then you could have the conversation about, well, the Bears finished the season at the Lions. Do you want them to have, control of their own destiny? One game, playoff starts in that final week of the season kind of thing. So, I mean, you can look at it however way you want to look at it, but I think the Lions win this. The Packers are just going downhill right now. Crazy news, too. Frank Ragnow coming out of retirement for the, for the Lions. I just picture, those old, like, action movies where the government comes to the retired spy's house in the woods and knocks on. It's like, Dan Campbell is the guy in the suit knocking on the door, and you see Frank Ragnow with a massive beard and he's carrying the deer he just butchered in the woods. Frank, we need you. The Lions country needs you, kind of thing. I wonder what kind of shape he's in too. I mean, he's only less than a year removed, but it's amazing how much you lose that. But that also shows how desperate the Lions are right now because they have their own injuries and their own issues on the offensive line. But yeah, I'll take the Lions to win this and cover. 3:30 kickoff today. Chiefs at Cowboys. Chiefs favored by 3.5. I guess I'm gonna go with the Cowboys. I'm gonna pick the Cowboys in this one. I think they're feeling good. That the Chiefs defense is not very good. It's very fine, and the Cowboys offense is clicking. I mean, George Pickens is the perfect receiver for Dak Prescott. It's crazy. And then like again, that Quinnen Williams trade is paying them dividends. The Chiefs can't run the ball anyway. They suck at it. Isaiah Pacheco is going to play today, but he wasn't good before he got hurt. And now you're running into Quinnen Williams and that improved 5-man front that the Cowboys are liking to roll out right now. The Chiefs won last week in a nail biter to the regressing, I guess you could say, Colts. There probably is a better word for that, but I'll take the Cowboys just to win this one in an upset. Late Thanksgiving game, Bengals at Ravens. Ravens by 7. Keep this one short and sweet. Ravens win, but Bengals cover. I think Joe can come out and sling it a bit. They're missing T. Higgins, which hurts them. This is an example. I said this a little earlier, but if the Ravens can't get their offense going against this horrible Bengals defense, when will it get going? The Bengals offense has been struggling, part mainly because Lamar has been kind of limpy and lame. He's had like 3 lower extremity issues across this year, but I just think that Bengals defense is too bad. So yeah, Ravens win, Bengals cover. 49ers at Browns. Bears will be playing both these teams later in the year. Brock Purdy coming off a terrible game on Monday Night Football. 49ers favored by 4.5. I'll take the 49ers though. The Browns, while their defense is good, Shedeur, and I've been saying this forever. I mean, excuse me. Shedeur as a first round conversation, it was insane. Second best quarterback, even, arguably pretty nuts. But, he's not a 6th round talent. So the fact that it took them this long to get him in there is kind of crazy to me. But I think the Browns will be better still. I mean, you saw that a little bit last week. And the 49ers defense is very hurt. I'm not talking myself out of this. No. I'm still going to pick the 49ers to win. 5 points. Yeah, 49ers to win. It'll be, you can see, I would stay away from this game, honestly, if I'm betting. Just because you could see the Browns just getting 2 picks on Brock Purdy, and then the 49ers defense just not having the pass rush, the run stopping to be able to really put them away, and it's just a weird close game. I would stay away from it, but if I had to pick, gun to my head, I'd pick the 49ers. All right, that is it. That was our show. Actually, it's still long, almost as the same length as it normally is, because I just don't talk. Apparently, I talk too much. But thank you so much for those who are crazy enough to join me on Thanksgiving Day. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, this is something that y'all needed, a little bit today, and that it's going to help you think about what could be for that Bears game. Again, I think I'm picking them to win this game for all the reasons I already said. And I just think this is going to be the game that all of a sudden the national news finally catches up. I mean, you're already seeing it a little bit. The Bears are being talked about a little in better view, in a better light. But this is the game that launches it. Now all of a sudden you're 9-3. You beat a quote unquote good team with a good quarterback, something that everyone's been clamoring, saying that you don't have. And then from here, right, you get the Packers after that. This could be very, very fun. But hopefully y'all have a good Thanksgiving. I am thankful. Honestly, this sounds cheesy as hell, but I'm thankful for you guys. I never thought way before when I threw a random DM to Will DeWitt and Nicholas Moriano, like talking about how they were wrong about an injury that was going on with the Bears. And that would become me joining that show. And then obviously when they moved on and became CHGO, I never thought that, I would be in a position where I can be the main host of a show and that you care, that people care what I have to say, whether it's the injury stuff that people have to say, whether, with the Bears conversation. So thank you guys for making this possible. Thank you for giving me the platform to flex my physical therapy brain and injury knowledge. But also this is just fun. This is fun for me. So, hopefully y'all have a fantastic Thanksgiving. If you have family in town, if you're seeing family, hopefully everyone stays happy and healthy. And if you don't, if you're solo, hopefully this podcast can do a little something to brighten your day. I will not be here next Thursday. I get to do a drive to Indiana, yay, for a continuing education course. So if anyone's from Indiana as a Bears fan, shoot me some suggestions around the Bloomington area for breweries, because I'm going to check some out while I'm down there. But you'll have Danny at the helm talking about the Packers game. It's actually a bummer. Can't believe I'm going to miss the talking about that game and what that looks like. But enjoy today. Bear down, everybody.